What if I told you that there is one simple habit that will bring you closer to God than anything else? How many times have you looked for peace, guidance, or a sign, and felt that the heavens were silent? Could it be that God wasn't listening, or that something was missing in you to see the connection? The truth is that the way to feel this divine presence is within your reach, and you may already be practicing this habit, but in the wrong way. Today I'm going to reveal what really makes this bridge stronger and how you can start feeling it today. What I'm about to share could change the way you relate to God and to yourself. So stay until the end, because the life-changing secret is in the last few minutes of this video. Sometimes what you've been searching for is in the silence between words, or in a simple gesture of an open heart. Are you ready to find out? Then come with me. Have you ever wondered why, when you want to get closer to God, there seems to be a distance you can't cross? It's like trying to hear a voice in a storm. You know it's there, but everything around you is so loud that the words are lost in the wind. This feeling of disconnection is more common than you might think. Many people carry this emptiness, this longing for something they can't name, but that beats inside them. I see the weariness that invades the hearts of those who search for answers and can't seem to find them. The hustle and bustle of everyday life, the worries, the fears, all create a tangle of thoughts that prevent us from perceiving the divine presence. Have you ever noticed how the mind churns when you try to just be quiet? It's like a troubled lake. While the waters are churning, you can't see what's at the bottom. And so it is with the soul. Many people look for God in big events, complex words, or elaborate rituals, believing that the connection lies in something distant and elusive. But what few realize is that true intimacy begins from within. It doesn't require traveling great distances or performing extraordinary feats. The kingdom of God is not out there in some hidden place. It manifests itself here inside you, in the silent space between your thoughts and feelings. Perhaps you've felt ignored when you pray, wondering if your words are really reaching the Father. And I tell you, no prayer goes unheard. God doesn't move away from you. It is the restlessness of the mind that creates the illusion of separation. Imagine you are in a bright room, but your eyes are closed. The light is there, but you don't see it. This is the divine presence, constant but often hidden by the veil of worry and fear. The root of this feeling of detachment often lies in the habit of looking outward for affirmation and comfort. It's like looking for a water source in the desert when you're carrying a full jug. How many times have you sought comfort in fleeting things, only to find that emptiness remains? This is because true peace does not come from what is around you, but from what is within you. I once observed a man who chased after wealth and fame, believing that he would find happiness by achieving all these things. But when he achieved his goals, he felt an even greater emptiness. What he didn't understand was that nothing external satisfies the thirst of the soul. The heart is filled only by drinking from the fountain of love and truth that comes from the Father. It's common for people to try to fill the silence with distractions, loud music, empty conversations, endless tasks. But it is in conscious silence that God's voice is revealed. Not the forced silence, but the moment when you just are, without masks, without defenses. When the mind is still, even for a brief moment, peace begins to whisper in the heart. The distance many feel from God is neither physical nor mental. It's built up by layers of thoughts that say, I'm not worthy, He's too far away, or I have to be perfect to get close. None of these beliefs are true. God doesn't ask anything more of you than your sincere heart. It doesn't matter what you've done or not done. His love is not based on merit, but on grace. This constant search for something that seems unattainable can be exhausting. But what if I told you that what you're looking for is closer than you think? What if the secret to feeling that presence is already part of your life, just waiting to be awakened in a different way? Sometimes the key to opening that door is a gesture so simple it goes unnoticed. How often in your day do you stop to think about what you're doing? And I'm not talking about automatic tasks like brushing your teeth or driving to work. I'm talking about that moment when you are really present, feeling each breath, noticing what your heart is carrying. It sounds simple, but few actually experience it. And that's where the secret reveals itself. It's not about doing more, it's about doing it differently. Have you ever talked to someone who seemed to be there only in body, with their mind wandering, off to 1,000 places? This is often how people relate to God. They speak mechanical words without realizing what they are saying or feeling. It's like sending a letter and not bothering to read it. The habit that can bring you closer to the Father is something you are already doing: communication. But for this bridge to be true, it must come from an attentive and open heart. Talking to God doesn't require formalities or beautiful phrases. He knows your every thought before it is put into words. What transforms this communication is intentionality. Imagine that you are talking to a dear friend. You are listening carefully, aren't you? You care about what they are feeling. God wants the same space of intimacy with you. No masks, no hurry, just sincerity. Many people think that prayer is just saying words, but true prayer goes beyond that. It's a state of connection, a moment when you let go of your worries and just give up. It doesn't matter if the words are few or if you are silent. What matters is the intention of the heart. Sometimes a single tear communicates more than 1,000 rehearsed sentences. I remember a woman who couldn't form words in the midst of immense pain. She simply closed her eyes, felt her own breath, and poured out her grief before God. And there, in that space of silence filled with truth, the divine presence enveloped her in a way that no words could describe. Do you understand? It's not what you say, but how you surrender in the moment. Another important aspect is attention in daily life. How often do you eat without savoring, walk without looking around, or breathe without noticing? Every little act can be a portal to the divine presence, if done with awareness. For example, when you drink a glass of water, you can give thanks for the moment. As you watch the sunrise, allow yourself to be touched by the beauty of the moment. God is in everything, but you have to be attentive to perceive Him. Once I saw a man in a hurry, complaining about the traffic, the delay, and the difficulties of the day. And next to him, another driver was waiting calmly, looking at the trees on the side of the road, breathing peacefully. The difference between them was not the situation, but the look. The latter found peace where the former saw only stress. It is this change of perspective that opens the door to divine presence. This habit of being present, attentive, and sincere doesn't require extra time or special conditions. It can happen while you're washing dishes, walking down the street, or waiting in line. What transforms these simple moments into sacred encounters is the way you place yourself in them. Don't wait for perfect circumstances to connect with God. Now is always the best time. And if you're wondering how to start, the answer is simple. Stop for a moment. Take a breath. Feel the air coming in and going out. Let your worries go, if only for a few seconds, and then talk to the Father or just be with Him. Like a child nestled in the arms of the one it loves, you'll find that the distance you felt begins to dissolve in this space of presence and surrender. And it is in this state of attentiveness and openness that another essential question arises. When was the last time you really stopped to listen? Because in a real conversation, it's not just about talking. How often have you wondered if God is listening to you? What if I told you that He is always listening, but you don't always stop to hear the answer? Communication with the Father is not a one-way street. Talking is important, but listening is essential. And to listen, you need silence, not only around you, but especially within you. Think of how many conversations you've had in which your mind was preoccupied with what to say, without even absorbing what the other person was saying. This is how many people relate to God. They ask, they beg, they question, but then they get distracted by the noise of the world and don't notice the answers that are already coming. They can come in an unexpected feeling of peace, in a sudden thought, in an encounter, or even in a silence filled with meaning. There was a man who prayed every day but said he never heard God speak. One day someone asked him, "And after you pray, have you ever tried to just be silent and wait?" It puzzled him. He always spoke, and as soon as he finished, he got up and went on with his day. That's when he decided to try something different. After his words, he sat in silence. At first, his mind was agitated. Thoughts came and went, restless. But he persevered. and in time he noticed that a deep stillness began to settle. There in the space between one thought and another, a quiet certainty filled his heart. It wasn't audible words, but an unmistakable presence. Hearing God doesn't necessarily mean hearing a voice. Often it's an intuition that guides a step, a peace that calms a difficult decision, or even the feeling that stops you from doing something you later realize was a mistake. It speaks through life, through signs, through the synchronicities that cross your path. The problem is that in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, these details go unnoticed. Have you ever noticed how nature teaches us to listen? Look at a tree. It doesn't rush its growth. It doesn't complain about the rain or the intense sun. It just is, and in that stillness, it finds the strength to flourish. So it is with the soul. When it is still, the wisdom that already lives within you blossoms, that divine spark that has always been there waiting to be heard. The challenge is to deal with the inner turmoil. When you try to quiet yourself, thoughts insist on appearing. To-do lists, worries, memories. This is normal. The key is not to fight them, but to observe them without getting caught up in them. Let them pass like clouds in the sky. And in the space that opens up between one thought and the next, you'll begin to notice what was previously unnoticed. A simple practice can help. Take a few minutes out of your day to just be. No music, no distractions, just you and your breath. If thoughts come, welcome them and let them go. Little by little, you will find that there is a space of stillness within you where peace resides. And it is in this space that God whispers to your heart. Listening also requires trust. The answer won't always come in the way you expect. Sometimes silence is the answer, an invitation to develop patience, faith, and surrender. Other times, the answer will come unexpectedly through another person, a situation, or even something you read or hear. The important thing is to pay attention. God doesn't limit himself to one format. He uses whatever is necessary to reach you. And when you begin to listen not with your ears but with your heart, you'll realize that you've never been alone. The peace that seemed so far away was always there, just waiting for you to sit still and recognize it. There is a universe of wisdom ready to be revealed in the simple act of stopping and listening. And in that quiet listening, something begins to change. You begin to see life differently, to see blessings where before you saw only routine. A new understanding emerges. What if recognizing these gifts and giving thanks for them is an even more powerful key to drawing closer to God? Have you ever stopped to consider what prayer really is? For many, it's an automatic practice, words repeated before bed or in moments of despair. But at its core, prayer is an encounter. It's you opening up to God, not with ready-made formulas, but with the truth of your heart. It's not about convincing the Father to listen to you, because he already listens. It's about allowing yourself to be sincere, without fear or masks. I remember a woman who once came to me in tears. Her words were jumbled, interspersed with tears. She was apologizing for not being able to pray properly, and I said to her, "Do you think God cares about pretty words? Your sincerity has reached him before your lips have even moved." The Father doesn't want eloquence. He wants the truth that dwells in the depths of your being. People often think that praying is just asking, and yes, God receives your requests with love, but prayer goes beyond that. It is a conversation between children and the Father, and, as in any true relationship, there is room for thanksgiving, venting, silence, and even questions. Don't be afraid to share your doubts or your pain. God's love is unconditional. He is not offended by your honesty. On the contrary, it draws you closer to him. Have you ever talked to someone and felt a weight lifted off your shoulders? Prayer does this on an even deeper level. When you turn your worries over to God, you're freeing yourself from the burden you're trying to carry alone. And contrary to what many people think, you don't need a specific place or time. God is not tied to temples or schedules. He is where you are, ready to listen at any moment. There was a man who thought he could only pray in church. He felt his words had more value there. One day, as he walked alone in the countryside, he was overcome by a sudden sadness. Without thinking, he looked up to the sky and said, "Father, I don't know what to do." At that moment, a gentle breeze touched his face, and an inexplicable peace enveloped him. Then he realized, it's not the place that matters, it's the surrender. God is not waiting for you to come to him. He is already with you, waiting for you to notice him. Another important thing to remember is that prayer doesn't have to be long to be true. Sometimes a simple thank you spoken from the heart has more power than long, empty words. Imagine a son looking at his father and saying, "I love you." Even if it's just that, those words carry a weight of love that transcends any explanation. So it is with God. He feels what you say with your soul. What if, instead of searching for the perfect words, you spoke to him as you would to a close? Friend, share your fears, your joys, even your small victories. He rejoices in your happiness even as he pities your pain. Nothing is too small to bring before God. If it is important to you, it is important to him. For the love the Father has for you is greater than any human understanding can reach. Sometimes prayer is simply sitting quietly and letting your heart speak effortlessly. Other times it's a cry from the depths of your soul. It doesn't matter what form it takes. What matters is that you allow this space for encounter. Prayer is like a bridge. You take a step toward the divine and realize that he has been walking toward you for a long time, and the more you practice this conversation, the more natural it becomes. It becomes something that flows throughout the day, a thought of gratitude when you see the sun, a silent plea in the midst of chaos, a smile when you remember that you are not alone. Prayer is not a distant ritual. It is a way of living in constant connection, and as that connection is strengthened, something subtle and powerful begins to happen. You begin to see life through the eyes of gratitude, and it is in this state of awareness that a new question arises. What if giving thanks, even before receiving, is one of the purest forms of faith? How often have you felt that you needed answers, but found only silence? What if I told you that in that silence is a wisdom that words cannot convey? Most people look for God in outside voices, in advice, in texts. But there is a truth that is only revealed when the soul is still. The world is noisy, but the heart knows that it is in silence that the eternal is heard. Imagine a still lake. Its surface perfectly reflects the sky. But if you throw stones or stir up the water, the picture is shattered. So it is with the mind. When it's restless, overshadowed by anxious thoughts and worries, it can't reflect the light that's already there. It is in the inner silence that the divine presence is revealed. And this silence is not the absence of sound, but a state of peace where you don't have to do, just be. I knew a man who, when he lost everything he had, looked everywhere for answers. He went to temples, consulted friends, read books, but he was still empty. One night, exhausted from searching, he sat alone under the stars and just stayed there, not asking, not waiting. And it was in this silent surrender that he experienced a different kind of peace. Not an immediate solution to his problems, but a presence that enveloped him and said without words, what he discovered that night was not outside of him. It had always been there, waiting to be perceived. Silence has the power to heal wounds that words cannot reach. It doesn't ask for explanations, it doesn't judge, it doesn't pressure, it simply welcomes. How often have you wanted to be heard? Without being interrupted, God offers you that. In silence, he listens to your tears, your hidden joys, your unspoken doubts, and with the same tenderness he answers. But in order to hear this answer, you have to stop the inner noise. Some people say, "But my mind won't stop. Whenever I try to be silent, my thoughts invade me." This is natural. The secret is not to expel the thoughts, but to observe them without getting attached to them. Imagine clouds passing in the sky. You don't try to grab them, you just watch them go by. The same is true of thoughts. Let them come and go, like visitors who don't have to stay. Little by little, between one thought and another, you'll find that peaceful space where God whispers. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it's easy to get lost in tasks and distractions. But what if, instead of always trying to do more, you chose to just be? There's no need for big retreats or special environments. The silence that transforms can happen right now, As you breathe, feel the ground beneath your feet and realize that right now you are alive, and that life itself is a miracle. I once saw a child playing alone, watching a butterfly. She was so lost in the moment that she seemed to forget everything around her. There was a simple and powerful lesson there. Being fully present is a form of silent prayer. You don't need words to connect with God. Sometimes an attentive look at the simplicity of life is enough. Silence also teaches us to wait. Not all answers come when you want them, but they all come in time. And while you wait, you can find in silence a faithful friend, that space where there is no charge, only the certainty that divine love is constant. Even in the darkest nights of the soul, this silence remains, offering an unseen and true embrace. In time, this practice becomes a refuge. When your mind races and your heart squeezes, you know you can return to that still place within. There, life slows down, heaviness lifts, and clarity emerges. Don't be surprised if, after a while in silence, new ideas appear, decisions become easier, and your heart feels lighter. Silence doesn't just speak, it transforms, and it's in this space of stillness that another feeling begins to emerge naturally: gratitude. When you notice the stillness, you realize that even if everything hasn't been resolved, there are reasons to be grateful. And then a new question arises that touches the heart. What if gratitude is the shortest bridge between you and the heart of God? Have you ever thought that sometimes what's lacking is not more, but a better understanding of what you already have? Gratitude is like opening a window to let in the light. When you begin to give thanks, even for the simplest things, something changes inside you and around you. Gratitude doesn't just bring you closer to God, it changes the way you see life. Some people expect great miracles to make them feel grateful, but what if the miracle is in the air you breathe right now, in the food that nourishes your body, in the embrace of a loved one, or even in the silence that welcomes you when everything seems to be falling apart? People often get lost waiting for the extraordinary, forgetting that the extraordinary is in the ordinary morning when the sun rises, in the water that quenches thirst, in the heart that keeps on beating. All of this is present. I remember a man who complained about his routine, his work, and his uneventful life. One day he fell ill and could not leave the house. What once seemed ordinary, like walking down the street or making his own coffee, became a desire. When he recovered, he vowed never to go a day without giving thanks. What he thought was small was actually an immense blessing disguised as normalcy. Gratitude has a quiet but profound power. When you begin to practice it, you find that what you were complaining about loses importance. Your attention shifts from lack to abundance, from what is wrong to what is right. And it's not just a mental exercise, it's a key that opens your heart to feel the divine presence more clearly. God dwells in this space of awareness, in this awareness that everything that comes to you has a purpose, even if it is not yet understood. Maybe you're facing challenges and you're thinking, how can I give thanks in the midst of pain? I understand it's not about pretending that everything is okay when it's not. But even in difficulty, there is always something to be grateful for, whether it's the strength that sustains you, the people who support you, or the learning that this difficult time will bring. Gratitude doesn't negate the pain, it makes the path through it easier. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to get used to good things? The roof that protects you from the rain, the bed that shelters you at night, the food that comes to your table. How often have you given thanks for these things today? The habit of giving thanks doesn't have to wait for big moments. Start when you wake up. Breathe in and think, thank you for life. When you drink water, acknowledge, I am grateful for this nourishment. These small gestures create a state of presence and connection that makes the day take on new colors. There's a secret to this. When you say thank you before you even receive something, you show faith. It's like a child who asks his father for something, and before receiving it, smiles and says, I know you'll take care of me. This kind of gratitude touches God's heart in a special way, not because he needs your thanks, but because you need this acknowledgement to align yourself with the love and abundance that has always been available. I once saw a woman who, even though she was going through financial difficulties, wrote down 3 things she was grateful for every day. At first it was simple things. Thank you for breakfast, for the smile of a stranger, for the sunset. Over time she realized that even in the midst of her struggles, her heart was lighter. And strangely, new possibilities began to appear. It wasn't magic, it was a shift in perception that opened up paths previously blocked by complaint and fear. Gratitude also teaches humility. It reminds us that we are not in control of everything, and that many good things happen to us without any effort on our part. You don't make the sun rise, you don't have to ask for your heart to beat. You're not responsible for the air that circulates around you. These gifts, silent and constant, are daily demonstrations of God's love for you. And when you recognize this, you feel enveloped by a tenderness that words cannot explain. And the more you practice gratitude, the more reasons you find to be grateful. It's as if your eyes begin to see things that were hidden before. Life doesn't necessarily become easier, but you become stronger and more at peace. Gratitude is a daily choice that feeds the soul and brings you closer to the love that has always been there. And in that state of recognition and love comes an even deeper understanding. You were never far from God. The connection was always there, waiting for you to recognize it. And now, with a more open and attentive heart, a new question gently presents itself. How do we keep that connection alive and constant in the midst of life's routine and challenges? How often have you thought that God is far away, that in spite of everything you've done, praying, searching, silence, this presence seemed too far away? What I want to remind you now is simple but transforming. You were never separated from the Father. The distance you feel is not real. It is created by the mind, by fears, by beliefs that have taught you to see yourself as small before something that has always been within you. Imagine a child who believes he has been lost from his father's arms, when in fact he has been carried all along. So it is with many hearts. They look outside for what is already pounding inside. The kingdom of heaven is not somewhere far away, it lives within you. Your every breath is a testimony that divine life dwells within you. And the secret of maintaining this connection is actually to remember it in every moment. Staying close to God doesn't require Herculean efforts or great feats. It's more about awareness than action. It means living with an open heart, attentive to the small manifestations of divine love in everyday life. An unexpected smile, the wind caressing your face, the kindness of a stranger. Everything can be a reminder of how much the Father is present, even when you don't realize it. Some people think that connection with the divine is limited to moments of prayer or holy temples. But I ask you, what if your whole life could be a temple? What if your every action, from the simplest to the most grandiose, could be done with the awareness of being in God's presence? When you walk with this reminder in your heart, even the most mundane tasks become acts of love and presence. A man told me that one day while washing the dishes, he decided to do it with full attention. He felt the water on his hands, saw the light coming through the window, and heard the sound of life around him. At that moment, he was filled with a peace he had never imagined he could find in such a simple activity. That is the secret, bringing God's consciousness into everything you do. It's not about when you pray, but how you live. But what about in times of pain, when everything seems to be falling apart? It's easy to feel God's presence when things are going well, but on dark days, how do you keep that connection? The truth is that even when the sky is covered with clouds, the sun is still there. So it is with the Father's love. It's constant, even when your eyes can't see. At such times, don't force a false smile. Allow yourself to feel, to cry if you must. But remember, even as the tears fall, God is with you, holding your hand. The practice of gratitude, which you have already begun to cultivate, is one of the keys to keeping this memory alive. Mindfulness of the present is another. And there's a third. When you choose to be kind, to forgive, to help someone, you not only connect with God, you become His channel in the world. Every gesture of love brings you closer to the Father, for God is love, and all love is a reflection of Him. Remember too that connection doesn't require perfection. Don't wait until you are ready to approach the divine. God doesn't love an idealized version of you. He loves who you are now, with your doubts, your stumbling blocks, and your unique beauty. The perfection that many seek already exists in the simple fact that you were created by love. Your value is not in what you do, but in who you are. And when you feel distant at the end of the day, do something simple. Stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and say with your heart, "I'm here, Father. I know you've always been with me." You'll be surprised at the peace that surrender brings. For no matter how distracted you become, God's love is like an infinite sea. It's always there, ready to embrace you again. In time, this connection stops being an effort and becomes your natural state. You begin to realize that you no longer need to seek God as something external. You live in Him and He in you. Every beat of your heart is a reminder of this sacred bond that has never been broken. And so, as you walk with this awareness, you become a light in the world. Your peace is contagious, your love inspiring, your life a testimony to the most beautiful truth of all. And as you live this truth, you spread seeds of kindness, compassion, and hope wherever you go. Not because you have to prove anything, but because that's what happens when a heart remembers who it really is. You no longer have to look far for what has always been within. God is not a distant promise. He is the living presence in your now. Your every breath is a reminder that His love is pulsing within you. Don't let the distractions of the world make you forget your divine essence. You were created to live, in peace, to love without measure, and to shine as a light in this world that so desperately needs what you carry in your heart. The choice to connect with the Father is yours. Not tomorrow, not when life gets better, but right now. All it takes is a gesture, a sincere word, a welcoming silence. The intimacy you seek is not a destination, it's a state of being. Live this truth. Walk with that certainty. Be that loving presence that transforms all around you. And remember, you are more loved than you can imagine, more guided than you can see, and stronger than you believe. May this message not just be words heard, but life lived, reality felt. Receive this blessing now with all love. May the Father's light illuminate your every step. May peace invade your heart, and may love guide your decisions. Walk, knowing that you are never alone, for God walks with you. Amen.